I learned how to lead through failure. I screwed up so many times as a leader. I learned what is right and what is wrong. I help teach these leaders how to actually lead, how to make good decisions, how to not be so emotionally involved in some of the decisions of the organization. I like I said earlier, I said I would never be a speaker. I would never be on a stage. And every time I get on a stage, I impact people's lives.
Hey, William, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on here. I'm pretty stoked to be here.
Yeah, I got your bio, so let's go over this. You're a 26-year military vet, a highly decorated Navy SEAL veteran. It says in here that you went from sniper instructor operations ranging from protecting the interim Iraqi officials, underwater missions that had to be sanctioned by the President of the United States. You've been a busy fella. And then you took all of that and on retiring, started teaching this methodology and mindset in universities and Fortune 500 companies. Talk to us about that transition from Navy SEAL, where your life's on the line, to actually going into a corporation and getting them to take what they do seriously.
I say that my transition from the military to civilian life is the hardest military mission I've ever been on. And I think there's a lot of veterans that have the same thing. I use the analogy. I don't know if you've seen that Avengers movie where Thanos snaps his fingers and half the world or half the universe's population just vanishes. You're having dinner with your family right there, and all of a sudden they're gone. Where'd they go? What happened? What's going on here? And so, that unfortunately that's the way I felt, or fortunately, so I had to figure out what I felt like I'd lost my purpose, I'd lost my mission, and I'd lost my team pretty much overnight. I went from having a purpose, I had a mission, I had a team, and quite honestly, a pretty badass purpose, mission, and team, and then to having nothing. And so I went through some struggles. I discovered CBD. I started a CBD company. I found out that it's very difficult to market CBD. You can't just run ads like every other product out there on the market. Merchant processing is quite challenging. And so I hired some coaches to help me figure out how to market. How can I market this thing, this molecule? And so they were, I've been coaching with different coaches for the last 3 years. And the way that I transitioned into being a coach myself is my coaches are like, bro, why aren't you coaching? Why aren't you speaking on stages? I'm like, that's not me. I don't do that stuff. That's not who I am or whatever. I swore I'd never do that. That's really the dumbest thing I think I've ever said is I swore I'd never do that, because all the things that I'm doing now are things that I said that I would never do. I would never be one of those guys standing on stage. I'm never writing a book. I do a lot of writing now. Apparently I have an ebook that we can talk about in a little bit. I'm writing another book on building high performing teams. But quite honestly, it was accidental. I didn't mean to do it, but it was just a natural progress of my growth and figuring out what the civilian world really is like. Because I've been in the military my entire adult life, from out of high school straight into the military. I spent maybe 3 weeks after I graduating high school before entering the military, and I've been there pretty much ever since, until for 26 years, until I retired, air quotes, no retirement here, after 26 years of service. And then I was like, I need to figure some stuff out.
That's got to be quite hard transition. I'd never thought of it like that before. I'm very blessed to know a number of Navy SEALs, current and now former Navy SEAL. But you go from a point where your identity is pretty much quiet. You can't. I've done events with Navy SEALs and there can be no photography, there can be no recording. And you go from that kind of, hey, we weren't here, to hang on a minute, I'm going to be on stage and stare at me and listen to me and help me. That in itself has got to be a mind shift.
100%. They do beat into you. Do not advertise the nature of your work. I didn't share what I did with people outside of my immediate family or circle of friends or whatever. If maybe I was on an airplane and someone was genuinely curious, I would slowly, maybe eventually tell them what I did, but certainly not right away. And then, I got out and I'm trying to sell different products. And one of my coaches was like, do you want to sell products? I was like, yeah. He's like, well, then, tell people that you're a Navy SEAL. Tell them this is the Navy SEAL, whatever. And I was like, I can't do that. It's been beaten into me. And then eventually I eventually got over it. I still struggle a little bit, but I've been practicing. You only get good at things when you practice them. So I've been practicing for the last 3 years, telling people that I was a Navy SEAL. I've been on quite a few podcasts to help practice. And that also led to me starting to get on stage. Again, very difficult for me to say that. But now the way I look at it now is I'm telling people that I'm a Navy SEAL. That's part of me holding myself accountable, because I can't let myself go. I have to hold myself to a higher standard than other people around, other people in this space. If I show up and I'm completely out of shape and I've been drinking all night and I'm just disheveled or whatever, that's not the ethos of being a Navy SEAL. I still carry that ethos with me of high performance. And then I'm also teaching other, high-performing organizations how to perform at a higher level.
Hey, I'm sorry for interrupting this podcast. I know it's a brilliant one, but I wanted to talk to you about your room, your connections. Now, we know full well that great things come from great connections and great rooms. Now, if you're in a room full of people that will challenge you, inspire you, motivate you, and support you, then great. But if not, then maybe I have the solution for you. Head on over to stevesims.com, look up Sims Distillery there, and join our community of creative disruptors. Those that are only not there to help you and motivate and actually give you information, but to support and answer questions. We very much vet the room to make sure that we support each other's growth. We all want each other to grow. So if you want to be in the right room, head on over to stevesims.com/Sims Distillery, and I'll see you inside my room. Enjoy the rest of the show. Now, that's something that I find very interesting, and we're gonna dwell on for a second. High performance. Now, the Navy SEALs in themselves, just from what everyone knows, and let's be serious, there's a ton that we don't know about the world and the life of a Navy SEAL, but this is the Alpha A Club. These are people that are the peak of the peak of the peak. You stepped away from that, you retired, and then you got coaches. Now, a lot of people would go, hang on a minute, your mindset, your direction, your focus, you would have to go into a situation sometimes with little information and still be able to achieve what the mission criteria was. Why would you come out and get coaches? But how soon after you leaving did you go, hang on, for me to get to my next level, I need coaches to help me get there? How soon was that from that leaving transition?
Again, it was accidental. I had a coach. He wasn't even a coach. He was a friend of mine. And he's there in California. I'm doing some work with him now. He's bringing me out to do some speaking engagements to his audience, which is very generous of him. But, he brought me out to his, actually, I did this swim across the Hudson River. It's a fundraiser. And I had already met this gentleman. And I was like, oh, are you going to have this class? Because maybe I can learn something from you on marketing. And he was like, nope. This was during the pandemic. The governor of the great state of California had shut everything down and wouldn't allow any sort of group gathering. But he said, there's nothing that says that two friends can't come and have lunch together. So I went to New York. I swam across the Hudson River, helped raise a bunch of money, flew to California. And it turns out he charges like $25,000 for like these sort of like half-day coaching experiences that I thought we were just going to have lunch. And I rolled in and we sat down in what he calls the war room. And, I was prepared to talk about, the business. But what I wasn't prepared is that he was going to start teaching me and coaching me on how to market, how to grow the company, how to do all these other things. And then I just took those things and I ran with it. And I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this coaching. And, as I started, then I was introduced to another coach. And then I realized, like, why am I going out and seeking coaching? Well, that's actually something that we did in the SEAL teams. So for example, when I was teaching sniper school, we would go to civilian long-range shooting experts, because that's what they do. They are long-range shooting experts, and we would learn something from them. If it was just made us 1% better, because really in the sniper world, shooting is maybe only 10% of what you actually do. There's all sorts of other things that you need to do. But as an instructor, I need to be very, very good at teaching all of these skills. And so we would go out and we would find experts that could make us 1% better. The same for shooting, the same for if we needed to, we hired like the world's best, shooters for pistol and rifle to make us better when we go do close quarters combat. We received a mid-deployment after action report from a team that was deployed over in Iraq. And they were like, hey, if you can figure out how to climb the outside of buildings, up to 3 stories with body armor, weapons, night vision, the whole thing, then that will be a huge asset for you when you come over here and relieve us. So we went out and we found the best climbers that we could in a shorter period of time, and they taught us how to climb. So basically, we were hiring coaches while we were in the SEAL teams to make us just a little bit better at our craft. Then we would take those lessons that they would teach us, and we would apply our own tactics, techniques, and procedures. And so that was really, once I stopped and thought about it, that was really the value of coaching. And then I was like, well, maybe I can help other people do that in the business world, in the leadership world. And I took a role for an organization. I called it like a paid internship because people were paying a lot of money to be a part of this organization. They were paying me like pennies on the dollar, which was fine. I just wanted to see if I was any good at it. And it turns out that I'm pretty good at it. I had some amazing results. So I started my own coaching business.
I love the fact that even in that alpha status, you sought counsel, you sought mentorship, you sought to be better. A lot of people get to a level, and the level may not even be very high, but they get to what they think is their top draw, and then they go, I'm done now. I'm good here. I don't need to be. But anybody in the planet, whether it be the president, whether it be Michael Jordan, whether it be Lewis Hamilton, any alpha, any A-level athlete, whether it be in the business world or in the sports world, seek to become better and therefore need that assistance to do it. So that's a very good point. You've actually brought that up. Now you've actually taken it from, and you mentioned that you actually had an ebook. Let's jump in. I don't want to wait until the end. What is the website to get this ebook you were talking about?
So the ebook, it's 5 secrets to think like a Navy SEAL. And it's going to be, the website is the number 5sealsecrets.com, the number 5sealsecrets.com. And again, it's 5 secrets to help you think like a Navy SEAL. And if you're watching this in any capacity, you see maybe my shirt or my hat, it says get naked. And that's really the secret. And so just to kind of give you a little behind the scenes, NAKED is an acronym. It's the N stands for never quit. The A is accept failure. The K is kill mediocrity. The E is expose your fears. And the D is do the work. And you have to do this every single day. And in that little ebook, it's only, it's a very short read. It's a quick read, but it's very impactful. If you go in there and you download it, you'll see really what I'm talking about when I'm talking about never quitting, accepting failure, killing mediocrity, exposing your fears, and doing the work.
All right, we'll put the link in there below. So I'm glad you actually pulled that out there. So now you've gone from risking your life, and now you're going into corporations and getting them to adopt the mindset to be able to go under the naked philosophy that you've just laid out. How open are people? Maybe I should rephrase this. If I'm in the military and I'm listening to you, I'm going to listen to you because my ass is on the line, my life's on the line, and the guy I'm next to me, his life's on the line if I don't step up and do what I'm supposed to do. But the corporate world, you get a paper cut. So how do you take that SEAL mindset into an office and get them to action it? They may be listening, but how do you get them to action it? Because everything's in the action.
Right. So a lot of it is just team building. Some of it is building competition within the organization. So if you look at departments in an organization, those are basically teams, and you have high performing teams and you have low performing teams. Sometimes we go in and we move leadership around. Sometimes we just give the leader different things to work on. And so when I'm talking to some, part of the leadership in the organization, one of the first things that I tell them is they have to start driving the culture of the organization. Because here's the deal. If you as the leader aren't driving the culture of the organization, someone else further down the food chain is driving the culture, and it's probably not the culture that you want. And again, most of what I teach is from experience, oftentimes from failure. And so there were times where I wasn't driving the culture in hard enough in the platoons that I was leading. and I it turned around and like maybe some of the we call it the E5 mafia were starting to try to drive the culture the other way. And so what I realized is I have to put the word out, the thing that I believe in, 3 to 5 things that I do not budge on. This is the culture. These are our core values of this platoon, of this task unit, whatever it is. And this is just the way it is, the end. If you want to try to change the culture, you can come talk to me about it, but it's probably not going to happen because there's a reason that I instilled this culture into this platoon. So, but you have to be consistent about it. If you're not consistent and you don't believe in it, then don't put it out. But you're not going to be running the culture. You have to run the culture. So we start off by building the culture, have them run the culture of their organization, drive that culture home every single day through core values or whatever you want to call it. Then we work on building teams. I work on leaders, learning how to actually lead. Most people that are in a leadership position, and I was included in this, in the military, you're shoved into a position. You may or may not really be truly qualified or really know how to lead. I learned how to lead through failure. I screwed up so many times as a leader. I learned what is right and what is wrong. And so I help teach these leaders how to actually lead, how to make good decisions, how to not be so emotionally involved in some of the decisions of the organization.
Now, you mentioned there clearly, and I want to get onto a mouse pad or onto a hat or something like that. You said that if you're not driving the culture, someone else is. So if you're not in control of it, you're not in control. Someone else is going to manipulate and move it. We hear a lot today about this thing about culture. A company has to have a certain culture. Is that one of the topics you talk about when you're doing your stage keynotes?
No. Generally, it's that 5 secrets to think like a Navy SEAL. So there's 2 things that I generally talk about. I either talk about how to get naked, or I talk about 5 secrets of 5 Navy SEAL secrets of leadership. And so I'm actually writing, co-authoring a book, to build high performing teams with these 5 SEAL secrets of leadership. And, one of the things, so I'll just kind of give you secret number 1 is to multitask like a Navy SEAL. And I use a gunfight as to kind of illustrate how leadership works, how multitasking works in the SEAL team. So when you're in a gunfight, there's 3 things that you have to do very, very well. Nothing else matters. You have to be able to shoot, you have to be able to move, and you have to be able to communicate. And here's the deal. You can only do one of those things very well at a time. So if you're trying to shoot, looking down the sights of your weapon, you can't really effectively communicate. If you're communicating, you can't effectively shoot. If you're maneuvering on the battlefield, you can't effectively, shoot or communicate. You can kind of do each one of them sort of half-assed, but you can't do any of them well until you can't shoot well until you stop, you take cover, you find the enemy, you make sure that there's no collateral damage on the backside or somewhere in between. You're not going to shoot one of your teammates. You line up your sights, you engage the enemy. You can't communicate well when you're doing that, and you certainly can't move when you're doing that. So that's lesson number 1. Number 2 is I say leaders get no bullets. And the reason I say that is young Navy SEAL leaders, they show up at the team, they're ready to go. And we practice these mock gunfights. We call them immediate action drills. And so you have targets that pop up, they shoot back at you. They're just fire and sound. But they simulate combat. They simulate being in a gunfight. And you'll have that new leader 100% of the time. He'll get out there and he'll just start shooting targets and engaging those targets, but he won't actually but that's not his job. And so as a senior leader, I'll position myself next to that brand new officer in the SEAL teams, that brand new leader. And I'll say, I'm just a new guy. I don't know anything. You make the call. I will never make a call when I'm in that position. My job is to shoot. My job is to have fun. His job is to lead. And what happens, he's a really good shot and he's out there, he's just dropping targets left and right, but he's not leading because he's looking down the sights of his weapon. And so eventually 2 or 3 runs, I might say, hey, what's the call? What's a call? What's a call? And put a little pressure on him. And then eventually I will say, you get no bullets. You get no bullets in your gun. You can carry them around, but you can't shoot any. And so he feels incredibly neutered at that point. But what happens is he can't look down the sights of his weapon because he doesn't have any bullets anymore. So what he has to do is he has to look at the enemy situation. Then he looks at the team situation. What's going on here? What's the terrain? And then he can start making a call. So as long as he's not looking down the sights of his weapon, he can actually lead. The leader's job is not to shoot. It's not to deliver the product. The leader's job is to lead your team. You might be the best shot. That's not your job anymore. Your job is to lead. So your job is to look at the enemy situation. That could be your competition. That could be whatever is in your way. Look at your friendly situation. What is your team doing? What's the attitude? What's going on with the team? What's the terrain? How do you need to maneuver? And then you make the call. The call is passed, and then you get up and you maneuver around the battlefield. And every time you maneuver on the battlefield, you maneuver on the business field, you put a product out there to sell, you whatever, you're going to get feedback. And your perspective is going to change. Maybe we got, good feedback. Maybe we got bad feedback. And every time you maneuver on the battlefield, every time you maneuver on the business field, your perspective of that field, that battlefield changes. And so you have to make new decisions along the way. And so rule number 3 is OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. It's really just a very formalized decision-making process. And I'll just stop right there with those secrets, not to go too deep in that, down that road, because I can probably talk about it for another hour.
Yeah, well, don't, because you want them to download the book.
Exactly.
So we actually had a Navy SEAL come into one of our speakeasies, and this one was in San Diego, and he actually went through the OODA loop. So it was very powerful to actually see how that does. Anyone that doesn't know what the OODA loop is, download this boy's ebook and get smarter with it. So having the experience with the military, I learned that one of the greatest weapons that they had in their arsenal was communication. And, without them being able to communicate, it'd get too scattered. It'd go. So they had to be able to communicate articulately and clearly. Now, when you're moving into corporations, we're in a world today where, you can't make that comment, or you've got to be careful about what you say there. Communications become stifled and fearful. And so the way to actually do it, instead of becoming better at communicating, which is going to remove the confusion and increase the clarity, they're actually not communicating. So have you found that over the years, communication in the corporate world has got worse, and people are actually scared to communicate? And if so, how do you get them over that?
Communication only works if it's two-way. So if someone is offended by your communication, they have to give you that feedback. If everything that you say is offensive, maybe that's not a good, there's probably some other stuff going on there, and maybe they're not a good fit for your organization. If your organization, that also goes back to the culture of the org. What is the culture that you want? I don't mean be a bunch of assholes out there, but I mean, I like to have organizations that are running lean. They could hire more people, but they don't need to. Running lean, running hard, and there's no time for this politically correct nonsense. If that's taking up so much of your time, your bandwidth on, someone's pronouns or whatever, then that you're focusing on the wrong thing. Like we're focusing on making money. We're focusing on impacting lives. We're focusing on building greatness in the United States and greatness in the world. If we're so bogged down focusing on the wrong thing, what are we doing? So if that has to be the culture of the organization. Like, we're not going to focus on stupid stuff. We're going to focus on the things that matter, the things that keep our business alive. We're in a recession right now, whether people want to admit it or not. We're in an absolute recession, and jobs are getting harder. It's harder to make money. Everything is more expensive. Supply chains, what have you. Why are we focused on things that aren't impactful for the masses? If you have a problem with whatever thing is going on in an organization, then maybe this is not the organization for you. I know that's
back to that culture.
That's a little callous, but it's reality.
No, that makes sense. What's driving you? You're a very powerful, strong man. So what's driving you over the next few years?
You know what? I want to impact as many. So a couple of things. So for my CBD company, Naked Warrior Recovery, our mission is 22-0. We have 22 veterans. There's new stats have come out that it's probably more like 44, but really it's 22 veterans take their lives every single day. So our mission is to eliminate veteran suicide. CBD could be a modality, but mindset, again, going back to the get naked mindset, take that ego, take that armor off, and then never quit, accept failure, kill mediocrity, expose your fears, and do the work. So that's what's got me going on Naked Warrior on the CBD side of it. But on the business side of it, it's just to impact as many lives as I possibly can. I like I said earlier, I said I would never be a speaker. I would never be on a stage. And every time I get on a stage, I impact people's lives. And it's, I know that because people come up to me and they're like, holy cow, that was amazing. And I do not think that highly of myself. I'm like, dude, I'm a work in progress. I have so much more to do. But when I get off the stage and people come up and they give me the feedback that they give me, I'm like, I need to get on more stages and impact more people's lives.
So if someone's listening to this and they go, I need this man in my group, I need this man on my stage, I need this man to take a look at my culture, what's the best way they can get hold of you to actually do that?
You know what? Just go to 5sealsecrets.com, put your information in there. And when you receive that email, just reply back to it. That email will come to me. And then we can start having that conversation about speaking or coaching or advisor. Coach is a kind of starting to turn into a little bit of a dirty word. Like people are like, what coach? Like everybody's a coach. Everyone's a life coach. Everyone's a whatever coach. I just do what I do. I do leadership and business and mindset. I don't know if I'm a life coach or not, but you could call me an advisor. If you want to call me a business or leadership advisor, I'm good with that too. So whatever you want to call me. But I know that I can help make your organization better.
As they say, whatever you want to call me is fine. Just call me. So what scares you or makes you nervous?
I don't want to use a word that the mainstream media continues to use, which is misinformation. But I think the narratives that get pushed around that are very distracting from what we should be focusing on in the United States. I think there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of narratives that get pushed around that are not exactly accurate. If it were me, I would say we're going to shut down the media for all of it for a month. I bet we would all live happier lives.
Do you know, I was with Gary Vee in Puerto Rico a while ago, and he said that there's probably a goat farmer up on the top of the hill that has no idea who you and I are, and he's perfectly happy.
And he doesn't care. Yeah, 100%.
He doesn't care. It is weird how we become caring about something that we really shouldn't be. All right. So again, look, William, you've been great on the show, but again, shout it out. Where can they get these 5 secrets? Go
to 5sealsecrets.com. And just put your information in there, and we will email you an ebook, a copy of the ebook. And if you're interested in CBD, nw-recovery.com or nakedwarriorrecovery.com. I changed it from Naked Warrior Recovery to NW because that maybe people don't want to write naked in their search engine. I'm not sure why. It was an epiphany that happened, after I created the website. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, what's the next website? So nw-recovery.com or Naked Warrior Recovery if you're not scared to put naked in your search engine.
That's beautiful. All right, William, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been an honor, a pleasure. Thank you very much for your service, and thank you very much for continuing it into helping people develop their ability to communicate and identify their culture. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on here. I appreciate you.
Well, that was another episode of the Art of Making Things Happen podcast with me, your host, Steve Sims. If you like it, you know the scoop. Subscribe, tell your friends, share it around. Let them get benefit from this juice. And of course, if you want to change the room you're in, join Sims Distillery. Jump over to stevesims.com/Sims Distillery, or you can find a link directly from that website. That's the room where creative disruptors get together to actually help each other become better. If you've got standards or you want higher standards, join the right room. See you next time.